Good evening, men of three crosses. Welcome to another day of reading through Ecclesiastes. Today we're reading chapter 7, 1 through 12. I'll go ahead and start us out here. A good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to a house of feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart. Frustration is better than laughter, because a sad face is good for the heart. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure. It is better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than to listen to the songs of fools. Like the crackling of thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of fools. This too is meaningless. Extortion turns a wise person into a fool, and a bribe corrupts the heart. The end of a matter is better than its beginning, and patience is better than pride. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. Do not say, "Why were the old days better than these?" For it is not wise to ask such questions. Wisdom, like an inheritance, is a good thing, and benefits those who see the sun. Wisdom is a shelter, as money is a shelter, but the advantage of knowledge is this: wisdom preserves those who have it. So I think this is really a really interesting passage. That was 7, 1 through 12. And I had to read this one a couple times because what I think Solomon is saying here is that the things that are easy aren't necessarily always the best things. Going through trials and tribulations, things that are harder to accept sometimes, harder to traverse, are sometimes those things that are actually more beneficial. So let's look at a couple examples here. He says, it is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take heart to this. And before that, verse 1, he says, a good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth. Now, most people would say the day of death is not better than the day of birth, that it should be the other way around. But if we think of it from an eternal perspective, when you're born, you enter into this world full of sin. And if you have Jesus as your Lord and Savior, then death is actually you, the passage from this world, from a world of sin into a world that is everlasting. So that's one example where death could actually be better than birth. And he gives a bunch of examples. Pleasure is a house of mourning is better than a house of pleasure. And all these things you would normally think, oh well, no, it should be the other way around. I would rather have pleasure than mourning. But what we've seen many times throughout this book is that this overindulgence in pleasure, it takes you away from living a life of meaning. And that is what Solomon is trying to encapsulate throughout this whole book. From what I'm seeing is, what does it mean to actually to live as a man, to live as a human being, and what is a life of meaning? How is that defined? And it's not with chasing pleasure. It's not by just fulfilling all of your indulgences, living in anger. It's always this, he turns to this idea of temperance, this idea of patience, this idea of modesty and working hard and chasing wisdom. These are the things that lead to meaningful fulfilling life. I also see a similar sentiment where this idea of trials of hardship is more beneficial than the easy road. And that I thought of James 1:2-4, where it says, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. So once again, this idea of going through the challenges of life and the crucible being refined, removing that dross to leave a pure substance, is the idea that I'm seeing here, and that is repeated in many various themes throughout the Old and New Testament. Well, thank you for joining us again today, and see you tomorrow.